I looked at Archer. Are you sure this isn't someone's idea of a joke? I hope so too. He set the phone down on the table, but I noticed his hand was clenched white. Archer's manager had taken a photo and sent it to him. He handed me the phone. It was a picture of me standing in front of the coffee shop near my office, an Americano in hand, head bowed, looking at my phone. The photo had been taken from across the street. Clearly, whoever took it hadn't wanted me to know I was being watched. I looked at the timestamp on the photo. 3 days ago, which meant after the kidnapping had already ended. I swallowed hard. Do the police know? Archer nodded. The FBI is checking fingerprints on the envelope. But what? There's no camera footage of whoever delivered it. An uneasy feeling crept into my chest. The ringleader had already been caught. So who was still watching us? 2 hours later, an FBI agent named Daniel Brooks arrived at my apartment. He looked to be in his mid-30s, tall, composed. After looking the apartment over, he sat down across from us. There are a few things I need to tell you. I nodded slightly. Daniel opened a folder. The leader of the gang is named Victor Malone. He claims only 6 people were involved in the kidnapping. But Daniel paused. We found traces of a 7th person. Archer and I both looked at him. A 7th person? Daniel nodded. Someone erased the security footage. Someone supplied Archer's schedule. Someone knew exactly which night Archer would switch cars. Archer frowned. That information. Only a few people on the team knew that. Daniel looked at him. Exactly. It's possible. Someone very close to you sold that information. The air in the room turned heavy at once. Archer leaned back in his chair. He was silent for a long time. Then he said quietly, I trust my team. Daniel replied immediately, I hope you're right. After Daniel left, the apartment fell into a strange stillness. I poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Archer. He took it but didn't drink. What are you thinking about? I asked. Archer looked out the window. I'm trying to remember. Remember what? In the week before the kidnapping. Whether anyone acted differently. I sat down beside him. Remember anything? Yes. He answered very softly. There's one person. Who? Lucas. My new assistant. I've only worked with him for 2 months. That night, Lucas was the one who suggested I switch cars. I felt a chill run down my spine. You suspect him? I don't want to. But everything points to him. A week later, my injuries had almost completely healed. As planned, Archer and I flew to Los Angeles. For the first time in my life, I set foot on the campus of the University of Southern California, where Archer had once studied. He walked me along the red brick paths, pointing out one building after another. That's where I studied acting. That's the coffee shop where I used to work part-time. I used to fall asleep in that library. I laughed. A Hollywood star falling asleep too? All the time. He laughed along. Especially before exams. That was the first time I saw the college student version of Archer. Not the celebrity. Just a young man carrying a dream. And suddenly, I felt the distance between us grow so much smaller. The talk ended in the late afternoon. Hundreds of students lined up for autographs. I stood backstage waiting for him. A female student came up and asked me, Are you Archer's new bodyguard? I laughed. No. So, family then? I froze. Before I could answer, Archer spoke up from behind. He's someone important to me. The student smiled. I understand. She walked away. I turned to Archer. What did you just say? He shrugged. I said the truth. I'm important. Archer looked straight into my eyes. Hayes, if you hadn't been at that rest stop that day, I'd probably be dead. No, don't say that. I'm not finished. He smiled. It's not just because you saved me. It's because, ever since I met you, I remembered what it feels like to look forward to seeing someone every morning. My heart pounded. Not from surprise, but because I felt the same way. without even realizing when it started. I had grown used to Archer's good morning texts, used to hearing him talk about the film set, used to dinners where it was just the two of us, used to it to the point that, on a day he didn't text, I'd start wondering if something had happened. Just as I was about to open my mouth, a scream rang out from outside the hall. Someone's fainted. The crowd fell into chaos instantly. Archer ran out on reflex to help. I ran after him. In the crush of people, a man in a baseball cap brushed past my shoulder. Very quickly, so fast that I only felt something being slipped into my jacket pocket. "I'm sorry," the man said, then vanished into the crowd. I reached into my pocket. There was a small black USB drive. No label, no markings, just a small slip of paper stuck to it. On it, exactly one line. "If you want to know who betrayed Archer, watch it alone." I raised my head, looking for the man, but he had vanished without a trace. I stood frozen in the crowd. The tiny USB drive in my pocket suddenly felt as heavy as a stone. "Hayes!" Archer's voice startled me. He was helping a female student who'd fainted from low blood pressure, along with the medical staff carrying her out. "Help me get the door." "Right." I rushed over at once. 10 minutes later, once things had settled, Archer turned to me. "What's wrong with you?" "Huh. You've been out of it for a while now." I reflexively touched my jacket pocket. The USB drive was still there. The words on the note echoed in my head. "If you want to know who betrayed Archer, watch it alone." Alone? Why alone? What if it was a trap? What if the drive contained malware, or an edited video meant to drive a wedge between us? I looked at Archer. He was smiling at a few students asking for photos. After everything that had happened, I didn't want to hide anything from him. But I also didn't want to walk him into a new trap. "It's nothing." I smiled. "Just a little tired." Archer studied me for a few more seconds. He didn't seem fully convinced, but he didn't ask further. That evening, we checked into a small hotel near the campus. Not a luxury hotel, just a quiet place arranged by the FBI to avoid the press. 2 adjoining rooms. I stood in front of my door, about to go in when Archer called out, "Hayes." I turned around. "Dinner?" "Sure. 15 minutes? I'll come down." He nodded and stepped into his room. I watched the door close, then slowly took out the USB drive. It looked completely ordinary. No logo, no serial number, as if it had been bought at any electronics store. I took a deep breath. Finally, I plugged it into my personal laptop. The screen showed exactly one file. No name, just "Play Me." I clicked it open. The screen went black for a few seconds. Then security camera footage appeared. Parking lot at a film studio. The date in the corner of the screen was exactly 3 days before the kidnapping. I watched closely. A black SUV pulled up. Lucas got out. I recognized him instantly from the photos the FBI had shown me. Archer's new assistant. A few seconds later, another man appeared, wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses. Lucas handed him an envelope. The man handed back a travel bag. They shook hands. The video ended. I frowned. That's it? Right then, the screen switched to a second clip. This one wasn't security footage. It was a phone recording. Someone seemed to have filmed it secretly from a distance. Lucas was talking. His voice was faint but audible. "I did exactly as we agreed. Tomorrow night Archer will switch cars." The person behind the camera asked, "What about the one traveling with him?" Lucas shrugged. "I don't care, as long as I get paid in full." The video ended. I sat frozen. This was no longer suspicion. This was proof. Lucas really had betrayed Archer. But who had recorded this? And why send it to me? Knock, knock. There was a knock at the door. I quickly pulled out the USB. "It's me, Archer." I opened the door. He looked at me. "Did you lose track of time?" I glanced at my watch. More than 30 minutes had passed. "Sorry. I was just looking at something." Archer smiled. "Hungry. Starving. Let's go." I started to step out, then stopped. I couldn't hide this from him. At least, not this. Archer. I need to show you something. 10 minutes later, we sat in the room, the laptop between us. Archer watched the whole video, without a word, until the screen went dark. He kept sitting still, his eyes red. Lucas, he murmured. Why? I put a hand on his shoulder. Maybe for the money. He laughed bitterly. I helped him once. He told me his mother had cancer. I paid for all her hospital bills. I was even. He lowered his head, planning to make Lucas my permanent assistant. I understood that feeling. Not the pain of losing money, but the pain of being betrayed by someone you trusted. I'll send the video to the FBI, I said. Archer nodded. But just as I was about to close the laptop, a hidden folder appeared. I'd been too focused earlier to notice it. The folder was named, For Hayes Only. Archer and I looked at each other. I clicked it open. There was only one audio file. I played it. A hoarse man's voice came through. Hayes, if you're hearing this, it means I've decided to trust you. I'm the one who recorded those clips. I used to work for Victor, but I don't want to help him anymore. There's something. The FBI still doesn't know. The man's voice dropped lower. Victor isn't the one at the top. I felt my heart pound. Beside me, Archer had gone still too. The recording continued. There's someone very famous. That person is the one who hired Victor to kidnap Archer. The recording suddenly filled with static. Then, it stopped completely. The room fell into silence. I turned to Archer. He was already looking at me. We both understood. We had just stepped into a secret far bigger than the kidnapping itself. The hotel room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioner humming steadily on the ceiling. I pressed play again. The recording repeated exactly the same. Victor isn't the one at the top. There's someone very famous who hired Victor to kidnap Archer. Then just static. No name given. Archer rested his elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. A posture I'd come to recognize over the past few months. Whenever he was tense, he sat like that. I don't understand, he said quietly. If someone wanted to hurt me, why not do it directly? Why hire an entire kidnapping operation? I thought for a few seconds. Maybe that person needs something from you, or doesn't want to be directly involved. Archer looked at me. I hate how calm you always are. I laughed. I'm just pretending. I'm actually panicking too. For the first time since hearing the recording, Archer laughed along. Just a little, but enough to lighten the heavy mood. That very night, we called Agent Daniel Brooks. Less than 40 minutes later, he arrived at the hotel with 2 other agents. Daniel watched the entire video, listened to the recording, then carefully sealed the USB drive into an evidence bag. You did the right thing not investigating this on your own, he said. But things are going to get more complicated from here. What do you mean? I asked. Daniel looked at Archer. If the recording is genuine, the person behind this could be someone with enormous influence. We'll have to verify every step carefully. Archer spoke up. Where's Lucas? Gone. Daniel answered. His apartment's empty. His phone's been deactivated. His passport's missing too. I sighed. So he ran, right? Daniel nodded. But whoever sent you that USB drive gave us a head start. He stood up. From now on, you two can't go anywhere alone. You'll have protection. I started to object. But seeing the seriousness on Daniel's face, I knew this wasn't a choice anymore. 2 days later, we returned to Seattle. Life seemed to go back to normal. I went to work. Archer kept filming. But only we knew that normalcy was just a thin shell. Every morning outside my office, a strange car was parked a few dozen meters away. It looked like an ordinary civilian car. In reality, it was FBI agents. Archer had additional security too. At first, he found it deeply irritating. I feel like I'm living in a glass cage, he complained. I laughed. At least, this glass cage is bulletproof. He shot me a look. That's a terrible joke. But you're still smiling. Yeah. Because of you. One evening in early November, I got off work late. Just as I stepped out of the office, it started to rain. I was fumbling to find an umbrella when a familiar car pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down. Archer sat behind the wheel. Get in. How did you know I'd be off work now? I asked Pumpkin. I burst out laughing. He answered you? No. But he gave me a very disappointed look. I opened the car door. So I had to come pick you up. The car pulled away. Rain tapped a rhythm on the windshield. Neither of us said anything. Strangely enough, being with Archer, I had grown used to these silences. No need to fill them with words. Just knowing the other person was still there was enough. After a while, Archer suddenly asked, Hayes, are you still afraid of love? I looked out the window. The city lights stretched into long streaks. Yes, I answered honestly. Very afraid. Why? Because last time, it took me a long time to get back on my feet. Archer nodded. Same for me. I'm afraid that if I'm sincere with someone, that person will end up in danger. I turned to look at him. He kept his eyes fixed on the road. But I knew he was thinking about the kidnapping, thinking about the bullet that had almost hit me, thinking about how an ordinary person like me had been dragged into his world. Archer, I called softly, if one day I decide to love someone, that will be my decision, not that person's fault. He gripped the wheel a little tighter. I understand. But I'm still afraid. The car stopped in front of my apartment. The rain had eased. I was about to open the door and get out. Then Archer spoke. Hayes, tomorrow night, there's a party for the film crew. I have to go. I know. Come with me. I was a little surprised. As what? Archer was quiet for a few seconds, then smiled. As the person I want beside me. My heart stopped. Not quite a confession, but no longer just a friend's words either. I looked at him. Our eyes met in the small space of the car. Neither of us looked away. Neither of us smiled to cover it up. Finally, I nodded slightly. Okay. The smile on Archer's face in that moment was more beautiful than any I'd ever seen from him on screen. And I had no idea that the party the next night would be where every last secret would finally begin to come to light. I had never liked entertainment industry parties. Honestly, I'd never set foot in one before. The next evening, standing in front of the mirror in my apartment, I changed my shirt 3 times. The first was too formal. The second too casual. By the third, I settled on a simple dark blue button-down, paired with a gray jacket and black jeans. Pumpkin sat on the sofa, looking up at me. If you keep staring like that, I'll think you're judging this outfit too. The cat just yawned and lay back down. Right then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Archer stood in the hallway. He wore a well-tailored dark blue suit, but instead of the usual red carpet polish, tonight he'd left the top 2 buttons undone, his hair more naturally styled. When he saw me, he smiled. You look good. I laughed. Don't say that. Why not? You're a famous actor. If you compliment someone's looks, they'll think you're just acting. Archer leaned a hand against the doorframe. Hayes, I'm off the clock. What? I mean, I'm not performing right now. I felt my ears grow hot. It was such an ordinary thing to say. But coming from Archer, it made my heart race. The party was held on the rooftop of a large hotel in downtown Seattle. Not overly extravagant, but the guests were all familiar faces from the film industry. Directors, screenwriters, actors, producers. The moment Archer stepped out of the car, dozens of camera flashes turned toward him at once. Archer, look over here. Archer. I instinctively stepped back, but Archer suddenly turned around, held out his hand toward me. Come with me. I looked at his hand, then at the crowd of photographers. Are you sure? I'm sure. If they get a shot of this, there'll be a lot of rumors. Archer laughed softly. They already make up plenty about me. One more story. Won't hurt. I looked at him for a few seconds. Finally, I placed my hand in his. Not quite holding hands. Just enough for him to pull me through the crowd. But in that very moment, I heard the cameras clicking nonstop. Click, click, click. I knew. By tomorrow, this image would be all over every entertainment site. The party went on lively and bright. Archer was constantly pulled away to greet people. I didn't know anyone, so I stood by the drinks table, sipping juice and watching the crowd. "You're Hayes, right?" A woman's voice rang out. I turned around. A woman in her early 30s smiled at me. "I'm Olivia, Archer's former manager. I've known him for almost 10 years. I shook her hand. "Nice to meet you." Olivia glanced toward Archer, who was talking with the director. "It's been a long time since I've seen him smile like that." I smiled a little. "Maybe he's just happy today." Olivia shook her head. "No, you don't understand. For the past 3 years, Archer has practically lived only to work. He doesn't date. He doesn't go to parties. He doesn't let anyone get close. I used to think he'd live like that forever." She looked at me. "Then you showed up." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Just then, Archer walked over. "What are you two talking about?" Olivia winked. "I'm talking trash about you." "I figured as much." Archer laughed. He handed me a small plate. "You haven't eaten anything. I got you some food." I took it. "Thanks." Olivia looked between the two of us, then smiled very knowingly. "I'll leave you two to it." After she left, I turned to Archer. "Is everyone getting the wrong idea?" Archer looked at me. "Hayes, if they're getting the wrong idea, does it bother you?" I stayed quiet. Did it bother me? Strangely enough, I didn't feel that at all. What confused me was that I didn't want to deny it. Around 9 that evening, Archer was invited up on stage to speak. I stood below, watching him under the lights. He thanked the crew, thanked the production team, thanked the audience, then suddenly paused. "I want to thank one more person." The whole room went quiet. Archer looked down toward me. His eyes were so gentle my chest tightened. "There's someone who reminded me that no matter how bad life gets, there's always a reason to keep believing in people." I knew he was talking about me. Applause broke out across the room. I lowered my head, a little embarrassed. Right then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Daniel Brooks. I stepped out onto the balcony to take the call. "Daniel." His voice was urgent. "Hayes, you're with Archer right now, right?" "Yes." "Don't let him out of your sight." My stomach dropped. "What's going on?" "We just caught Lucas." I held my breath. "And?" He talked. "The person who hired Victor is at the party tonight." I turned and looked back into the hall. Hundreds of guests. Music. Laughter. Sparkling lights. But now, any one of them could be hiding the person who had planned Archer's kidnapping. Daniel spoke quickly. "The FBI is on the way. But before we get there, don't trust anyone." The call ended. I looked up, just as Archer was stepping down from the stage. Behind him, a man in a black suit was approaching with a smile. In his hands, 2 glasses of champagne. Every sound in the room seemed to disappear. All I could see was the man in the black suit, around 50 years old. Hair streaked with gray, polished, courteous smile. If I'd met him anywhere else, I'd have taken him for a successful businessman. But Daniel's words still echoed in my head. "Don't trust anyone." The man handed 1 glass of champagne to Archer. Archer smiled politely. "Congratulations on the film." The man said, "You deserve this success." Archer took the glass. "Thank you." I started walking quickly toward them. But in the crowd, one person after another accidentally blocked my path. A photographer stepping back. An actress mid-conversation. A server carrying a tray of drinks. Every step took longer than I wanted. I stared hard at the glass of champagne. I didn't know why, but my instinct told me something was wrong. "Archer." I shouted. He turned his head. Just as the glass touched his lips, I lunged forward. Don't drink it. I knocked his arm hard. The glass fell to the marble floor. Crash. The sound of shattering glass silenced the entire room. Every eye turned toward us. The man in the black suit froze. What's going on? He asked with perfectly convincing surprise. Archer looked at me. Hayes. I was breathing hard. Don't drink it. Absolutely don't. The man laughed softly. Your friend seems a little on edge. He bent down to pick up the broken glass. Right at that moment, Daniel and several FBI agents stormed in. FBI! Everyone stay where you are. The guests began to panic. Screaming. Chairs toppling. Daniel walked straight up to the man in the suit. Richard Coleman. You're a suspect in the kidnapping of Archer Sullivan. The man frowned. Me? You've got the wrong person. I'm an investor on this film. Daniel didn't respond. He simply pulled out a phone. Played the clip of Lucas's confession. In the video, Lucas said clearly, "The one who paid me is Richard." The smile vanished from Richard's face. He looked at Archer, then laughed. So finally, this day has come. Richard Coleman, one of the most powerful investors in Hollywood. Also the one who had funded the film that turned Archer into a star. Couldn't believe it. Archer even less so. He looked at Richard as if looking at a stranger. Why? He asked. What did I ever do to you? Richard sighed. You didn't do anything. That's exactly the problem. He looked around the room. 30 years ago, I was an actor too. I had talent too. I had dreams too. Then, everyone forgot me. He laughed bitterly. But they remembered you. All of them. Directors. Audiences. Awards. Everything belonged to you. Archer shook his head. Just out of jealousy. You hired someone to kidnap me? Richard looked straight at him. I never meant to kill you. I just wanted you to disappear for a while. To let some contracts fall through. To let the studios lose faith in you. To let you understand what it feels like to lose everything. Daniel spoke up coldly. But Victor didn't follow the plan. Richard fell silent. Daniel continued. Victor wanted to extort money. And he hid from you the fact that he'd also taken Hayes. From there, everything spiraled out of control. Richard closed his eyes. For the first time, I saw him truly look old. No longer a powerful man. Just someone whose life had been consumed by his own envy. The agents cuffed Richard. He didn't resist. As he passed Archer, he stopped. I used to think, if you disappeared, I'd feel better. He laughed sadly. But it turns out, what I hated was never you. It was myself. That was the last thing Richard said before he was led away. The party ended in chaos. News vans crowded outside. But the FBI quickly moved Archer and me out through the back exit. The SUV drove through the night. Neither of us said a word. About 10 minutes later, Archer suddenly spoke. Hayes. It's really over now. I turned to look at him. For the first time since that night in the warehouse, I saw his eyes completely at ease. No longer on guard. No longer anxious. Only relief. I smiled. Yeah. It's over. Archer looked out the window. No. He shook his head slightly. I mean, the nightmare is over. Then he turned to me, took my hand. No more hesitation. No more looking for reasons. Just simply holding on. And I want to start something new. I looked down at our hands intertwined. Then at the young man in front of me. The one I had first met. In a dark room, both of us tied up. Who could have guessed that such a strange twist of fate would lead us to this moment? Me too, I answered softly. The car kept driving. Outside, the last of autumn's rain had stopped. On the distant horizon, the first rays of morning light began to appear, just like our lives. After a very long night, finally, we were seeing the dawn.